Okay, so today's topic is going to be sight. So this is the second part of senses, and we're going to go over the different structures that kind of help your eyes do what they're supposed to do so that you can see things and differentiate different colors and all that good stuff. Okay, so the first external structure is going to be your eyebrows. Your eyebrows are not just, an accessory for your makeup look or anything like that. These are actually your natural sweat blockers. You'll see sometimes people wear like those weird bands around their face to kind of help block sweat, but that's kind of what your eyebrows are supposed to do. They also kind of are meant to help show expression and all that good stuff. The next structure is going to be your eyelashes. So your eyelashes, their job is supposed to be to block stuff, um, like foreign particles. They block stuff from getting into your eyes, which is kind of funny because that's usually what gets in your eyes. And they're really sensitive to things. So like if you go outside and there's like, maybe dust or something in the air, they'll cause you, to kind of close your eyes a little bit or to blink really, really fast to help prevent things from getting in your eyes. And then the last external structure is going to actually be kind of a group of them. You have glands scattered all around your eye on the inside of like your eyelid and stuff. So we're just going to call them glands. So if you think about your vocab words, you had like the ciliary glands, and you also had the tarsal glands. And their job is to lubricate the eye. Okay, so if you've ever had dry eye, you know that it's really painful, and it, kind of puts a lot of wear and stress on your eyes. So their job is just to keep your eye moist, um, to kind of help it keep together and all that good stuff. And then the last external structure is going to be your extrinsic muscles. You can't see them, they're in the inside of your eye socket, but you have 6 extrinsic muscles, and their job is just like any other muscle, is to move your eyeball. So this is what allows you to move your eyes up or down or to the side so that you can see all around you. All right, so now we're going to go through the structure of the eye. For now, all we're going to do is just draw, and then we're going to go through and kind of identify the function of each of the structures. So we're going to start with a kind of wide C, and then we're going to draw this thick part here behind it. Make sure to leave a space. Okay, so the outer part, this is known as the cornea. Right on the inside of the cornea, so this space here, this is filled with a liquid, and that liquid is known as the aqueous humor. And then this dark part that we did on both the top and bottom, that is your iris. That's what gives you your eye color. And then the space here, I'm gonna do kind of like a dotted circle. That is your pupil. Should be a U. Behind your iris, you're gonna have these kind of string-looking things. that are going to hold a ball shaped structure. And that ball is known as the lens. Should be an S right there. It's kind of hard to see. And then what holds the lens in place is going to be your suspensory ligaments. So suspensory, you kind of remember it by, it's kind of, you know, holding the lens, it's suspending the lens. All right, and then we're gonna draw the rest of the eyeball. It's not gonna be drawn to scale because I want to be able to write in the layers, but you have 3 layers. Let me draw in here. And I'm going to draw them a little bit closer together on the top. Just use the bottom section to label. All right, so the first layer is going to be your retina. Probably heard of that one. The next, or the middle layer, that's known as the choroid. And then the outermost, or the most superficial, is known as the sclera. And then you also have a liquid or a goo. And the goo that's in this part of the eye is known as the vitreous humor. Then at the back of the eye, I'm going to draw like a little filled in circle. This is known as your blind spot. And then you have a nerve at the back of your eyes, which is known as the optic nerve. Right, this blind spot, I want you to also write it as the optic disc. This is the more, I guess, correct scientific term for it. Okay, so we're gonna go through each of these structures and kind of what their job is, and some other like substructures that help, you know, your eye do its thing. And then we'll do an activity to kind of show you how you can find your blind spot, which I think is kind of neat. Okay, so the first structure that we are going to discuss is going to be the aqueous humor. And I'm just going to abbreviate it here. So the aqueous humor is a liquid, kind of like aqueous is water. And this is going to be at the front of the eye. So this is going to be the liquid that you find from the cornea to the lens. And its job is to keep the shape of your eye. You don't want your eye to collapse on you. The next structure is going to be your cornea. This is going to be the outermost part of your eye. This is going to be kind of like your first focus point. This is what lets light into your eye. And like I said, this is your first lens. If you get LASIK eye surgery, this is going to be one of the things that they kind of help shape with a laser, you know, kind of adjust the way that it's shaped, kind of make you some sort of like built-in glasses. Okay, next you have your pupil, which once again, it's kind of this blank space between the iris. So your pupil is basically just a hole or a gap for the light to come in through. And it's going to go through the pupil so that it can get to the retina. Whenever you shine a bright light at somebody, you'll see that the pupil gets smaller because it's trying to limit the amount of light that's going to the back of the retina. That's also how, you can tell if somebody has been doing certain things that they shouldn't be doing because their pupil will change size as well. So the pupil brings us to the iris, which is what gives you your eye color. So we're gonna go through, kind of make it brown, like our previous picture. Okay, so your iris is made up of two muscles. And these muscles are responsible for controlling the size of the iris. It either makes it bigger or smaller. Okay, so the first one is known as the sphincter pupillae. So this one contracts when there is bright light. So this makes your iris get bigger, which means that your pupil gets smaller or shrinks. And then the second muscle is known as the dilator pupillae. And this will cause the iris to get smaller or appear to be smaller. And then this is going to be, for example, when there's a dim light, or you're trying to focus on something that's far away. And so this is going to make your pupil enlarge, or dilates, which means that it enlarges to allow as much light in as possible. The next structure is going to be the lens, which is here. So the lens is kind of like this crystal-like little ball. And its job is to focus the image for the retina. Whenever you're resting, your lens is kind of focused on far away things. And so if you want to focus on something that's close by, then what's going to happen is the suspensory, let me change color. The suspensory ligaments have to adjust the lens in order for you to focus on things that are close by. And so they are going to kind of change the shape of the lens, and they're going to contract the lens. And this process is known as accommodation. Kind of ran out of space there. That's what's going to help focus the rays of light onto the retina so that you can look at things that are closer in better focus. This process starts to kind of wear down, or it's not as good as you get older. And so, this is why you'll see sometimes people who never had vision problems as they age, they need something known as like reading glasses or stuff like that. A little side note here is going to be what the suspensory ligaments are attached to. So you have your lens, and the lens is adjusted by the suspensory ligaments. And then these ligaments are going to be attached to the eye at these points here. And that's known as the ciliary body. And that's part of the choroid layer, which we'll get to here in a second. So ciliary body is where the suspensory ligaments are attached. All right, next structure is the vitreous humor. And its job is pretty much like the aqueous humor. It's to keep the shape of the eye, but this is going to be at the back part of the eye. So this is going to be from the lens area all the way back to the optic disc. So from the lens all the way to the optic disc is your vitreous humor. All right, so the next one is going to be the choroid layer. I'm going to skip the retina for now. So the choroid layer, which is what the ciliary body is kind of part of. So the choroid layer is going to be your blood supply. This is in the middle. So both the retina and the sclera don't have blood tissue or blood vessels. And so the choroid layer, that's what brings in the nutrients to the eye. And then the last one for this part is going to be the sclera. So the sclera is all on the outside. And this is the white, or the whites of the eyes. It's just kind of like the outer connective tissue. It's very fibrous, it's tough, and it just kind of helps keep everything together. Your retina, or sorry, not your retina, your cornea is part of this. That's why it's see-through, doesn't have any blood supply. You can actually get a cornea transplant, and they don't have to worry as much about whether blood type matches or not, because it doesn't have blood supply to it. All right, so the next structure is going to be the retina, which is going to be the innermost layer. And the retina is the part of the eye that does the actual seeing or the detection. And so this is where you have specialized cells known as photoreceptors. And these photoreceptors, their job is they convert electromagnetic radiation and they're going to convert this into action potentials. And if you remember, action potentials are just messages or signals in the nervous system. This is how your brain communicates. All right, so a little bit of kind of a review from physics, or maybe you didn't take physics. So this would be kind of good information, is what is light? Okay, so light is electromagnetic
radiation that travels in waves. Maybe you've seen a sort of chart that shows you all the different, waves and their frequency. You know, you have your really long radio waves, and you go, all the way to like X-rays and gamma rays and all that good stuff. But we're going to focus on the visual spectrum. Okay, and so waves have two things that we have to worry about. And the first one is going to be frequency. Okay, so frequency is responsible for determining color. Or hue. So we have our high frequency waves, and then we're going to have our low frequency waves. Okay, so frequency is just how many waves go through a certain point in a certain amount of time. Okay, so we're going to draw them the same height, but high frequency would be lots of waves pass through this point. And so if it has a high frequency, this is going to be your blue and your purples. And then if it's low frequency, it's still the same height, but not as many complete waves pass in that amount of time. This is going to be like your reds. You have a low frequency. And then the other thing for light that we're going to be concerned with is going to be the amplitude, or how tall. So this is the height. Okay, this is going to determine the brightness. So you have your like neon colors versus your, really dull or flat colors. So if it is, let me go back here a second. Okay, so if it's really bright, it's going to have a high amplitude. So it's the same frequency. So we're going to put two waves. This would be bright. And if it's low amplitude, so it's not as tall, this would be dim or dull. A dull color. Okay, so back to the retina. So your retina has those two types of photoreceptors. And these photoreceptors are known as rods and cones, and they have a different job. They're going to detect different things. So the first one that we're going to go is going to be the rods. You have more rods than you do cones. And these are the ones that are going to work in dim light. So let's say you're in a dark room, but you can still kind of see, where there's furniture or kind of things in your way. But they're not very good at fine detail. So these kind of just give you a sort of black and white picture. And then the other type of photoreceptor is known as your cones. These are the ones that are going to give you your color. You have your red, blue, and green. And these really only work in bright light. So back to the scenario of the dark room. You can see things in dim light. You can kind of just tell general outline of things. But if you want to be able to see in a lot of detail, you have to have good lighting so that these cones can work. And these cones are the ones that are responsible for, people that have color blindness. They have, certain genetic things where one or more type of cones don't work properly, and so they may not be able to see or differentiate, blues or reds or greens or a certain combination of them. So this is the part where, their eye isn't really functioning properly. So you have these photoreceptors all in your retina, all here. So you can detect things all over up until you get to something known as the optic disc. Okay, so the optic disc, or your blind spot, is the part of your eye that is not going to have any receptors, and so you can't actually see anything there. So you have your optic disc. This is your blind spot. So you have no photoreceptors here. Okay, so the reason why when you're just looking at something, you don't have two black spots in your vision where you just don't see anything. Your mind or your brain fills in the gaps by using the images provided from the other eye. Your eyes are never 100% still. You may not notice it, but they do kind of sort of scan around. So like, let's say you were to close your left eye, you still don't have like a random black spot in your vision. Your eyes are kind of scanning around. Your brain, is trying to fill in gaps based on the information that it's receiving. So we're going to do a little activity later to kind of show you how you can find your blind spot, that I think is pretty neat. But anyway, so your optic disc or your blind spot, you have no photoreceptors, but this is where information gathers. So all the information that your retina received is going to travel to this point. Information gathers, and then it's going to be sent down the optic nerve. And then from the optic nerve is going to travel, and it's actually going to cross. So we're going to put a little parentheses here. It's going to cross in the optic chiasma. If you remember from the when we went over the cranial nerves last semester, it formed kind of like an X. So the information that you picked up with your left eye, so if it was picked up with this eye, it crossed over and it was actually sent to the right side of the brain, and vice versa. And this information, after it crosses the optic chiasma, is going to travel all the way to your occipital lobe. So if this is your brain here, you have your cerebellum here. So if this is the front part, it was going to go back here to the back part of the brain. So this is the front, and then this is the back. The occipital lobe is what is going to process the information so that you can, know what you're looking at. So that's the gist of how your eyesight works. Okay, for this last part, it's just an activity. You just have to make sure that you move slowly, or else you might miss your blind spot. So the first thing you want to do is you want to close your left eye, or you can put your hand over your left eye, and you need to focus on the dot. Okay, so with your right eye, you're focusing on the dot. Try not to move your eye to try to look at the cross. And so once you closed off your left eye, you want to slowly move towards the dot. And at some point, you'll notice that the cross disappears. So all you will see is a dot, and that is going to be the blind spot of your right eye. And then you can do the same thing covering your right eye, but this time you're going to focus on the cross. And so you slowly kind of move towards the cross. You might even, adjust yourself a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. And whenever the dot disappears, that's where you have the blind spot of your left eye. And that's how you find your blind spot. So you can pause the video so that you can, kind of test where your blind spots are. Okay, the last thing I'm going to show you is known as photoreceptor fatigue. And so what happens is you can stare at an image for a really long time, and the cones that you are using to look at that image can get tired. And so if you were to look at another image right after, or like a blank space, your cones that are not tired, so the ones that you were not using, are the ones that are going to be left to fire. And so you're going to see the after image using the kind of like complementary cones. And that'll make sense here in a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the image, and I'm going to let that run for about 20-30 seconds. And what I want you to do is I want you to focus on that pink dot that you'll see right at the center of the US flag. And you'll see that the colors are not, the bright colors. But after those 20-30 seconds, I'm going to change it to a completely blank screen. And then you should see the American flag in its red, white, and blue colors. All right, so if you focus correctly on the previous image, you should have gotten a glimpse of the US flag in its normal red, white, and blue colors. And once again, just showing that you can tire out some of your cones. And so if you have to, use your cones again, some of them are going to be tired and they're not going to work. And so only the ones like kind of like complementary to those are the ones that are going to be left to fire and kind of show you an image.